That's correct.
Okay.
If there was a change in use, and even under the change in use, an
Only
existing
change in
structure to an extent is grandfathered in terms of expansion, parking, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. Motion to move this forward?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Pompowitz, seconded by Mr. Akers to move the proposed text amendment to our next public hearing, and I take it you've already advertised, right?
Yes, sir.
Because we said we were going to do this.
Yes,
Not
sir.
because you're being presumptuous at all,
No, sir.
because we said we were going to do this.
I learned a long time ago not to do that.
Already, okay. And I'm glad you did, because we would have run out of time. Okay, motion made by Mr. Pompowitz, seconded by Mr. Akers. Discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. And I think on that note, we will take our break, and we'll be back close to 7:30 for public comments, then our 4 public hearings. We'll do agenda item 8, 9, 10. That'll be it. I don't see anybody from Fred yet, so sure they probably won't be here till 8:30. So, all right, we will stand adjourned. All right, we will reconvene the September 13th meeting of the Board of Supervisors. At this time, we've reached our public comment section. At this time, we allow any member of the community, if they would like to speak regarding any matter that's not a public hearing, that they can do so now. So if there's anyone who would like to speak regarding any matter that's not a public hearing, please feel free to do so now. Is there anyone who would like to speak? Is there anyone? Yes, sir. That's not a public hearing. It's not regarding the public hearing.
Not regarding the public hearing.
Right. If you want to speak about the public hearings, we're going to have a special time for the public hearing. So,
It was a general question, trying to figure out what can be done in order to get things moving at the shopping center that's being developed on the corner of Rogers Clark and Belmont. Is there anything that can be done other than watch them come move dirt once a month?
that is actually normally we don't have a lot of public comment or back and forth in public comment, but since I know that one all too well, that's now owned by a private developer. I think you'll see the sign, it's a Mr. and Mrs. Hart. They are actually trying to recruit a business into that site. To say they haven't had much success would probably be an understatement, because it's been like that for 8 years, maybe longer. So they are actually still trying to recruit someone. I guess in this particular, climate as far as the economy, it's a little harder. But Mr. Wilson is our economic development director, the gentleman in the corner. We're going to try to work with him a little more to see what we can do. But it's like a private thing. It doesn't belong to Belmont. It doesn't belong to county. Excuse me. We've said from the county perspective, we'll do whatever we can do to help you get started. We were looking at a grocery store. They were looking at a drugstore. And all we have right now is dirt. So we are actually trying to work with them, but it's really up to them.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay? My pleasure. And you, I take it, you didn't say your name, so if you could just say your name.
Katron Johnson.
Okay, Mr. Johnson, I take it you live in Belmont?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So that's the Mattapanai district, just for our records. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Johnson. That was the other part. Okay, we'll move to agenda item number 4, public hearings. Proposed granting of utility easement over property owned by the Caroline County Board of Supervisors on tax map 43A1. That is Mr. Shebel.
I can, either way.
Well, he dressed up for it, so we might as well have him.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mr. Parton. Your first public hearing tonight is to grant a utility easement over property owned by Caroline County Board of Supervisors. The property is located at 233 West Broadus Avenue, the Public Utilities / Planning Office. The town of Bowling Green has requested this easement as part of their extension of utilities going up the 301 corridor. As well as this, they will be replacing the main along the road going to the plant and replacing that entire line. So as part of that, they have requested that the county give them an easement through our property to be able to extend their utility services. And it is recommended by staff.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Shebel. And this is just as a general question. This is as you're leaving Bowling Green going towards Carmel Church. This is just the far corner of the parking lot.
It's the front parking lot.
Yeah.
It goes behind the sign that's out front. It says Public Utilities and Planning. It comes across the front portion of the parking lot.
Does it affect the entrance?
It will while they're doing construction. They've got to replace the entire roadway in front going all the way to their plant, as well as our front entrance will be replaced as well during construction.
How will we get in and out of there?
The contractor is going to have to coordinate that to allow us to have access back and forth through there, as well as the public and staff to their own facility as well.
Okay. Any questions of Mr. Shebel at this time? Thank you, Mr. Shebel.
Thank you.
We will now declare the public hearing open for the proposed granting of utility easement over property owned by the Caroline County Board of Supervisors. Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this matter? Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this matter? Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this matter? Hearing none, the public hearing is declared closed. Board members, questions? Discussion? Motion?
I make a motion, we approve the utility easement over the property owned by Caroline County Board of Supervisors, tax map 34A-1-1.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Seeley, seconded by Mr. Popowitz. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, bless you. All those opposed, no or nay. Hearing none, motion carries unanimously. Agenda item number 5 is the proposed regional water supply plan for Caroline County and the town of Bowling Green. Mr. Shebel, nice to see you again.
Yes, sir. Your second public hearing tonight is on the regional water supply plan. In the summer of 2002, the state of Virginia experienced a severe drought, and as a result, the Virginia General Assembly mandated that the development of a local and regional water supply plan be made throughout the Commonwealth. The State Water Control Board developed regulations to implement this planning process that will be reviewed by the Department of Environmental Quality. The regional water supply plan was developed between Caroline County and the town of Bowling Green. Based upon these regulations, Caroline County and the town of Bowling Green are required to complete the water supply plan that fulfills the regulations by November 2 of this year. It was determined that it was both reasonable and practical for us to coordinate and collaborate in the development of the regional water supply plan. This is a sensible approach to develop the plan, since watershed boundaries and aquifers do not follow political boundaries, and since there were a cost savings to both jurisdictions. The purpose of this plan is to aid in the development of the water supply that will help to ensure that the residents are adequately provided safe drinking water, and to assist in the development of the water supply projects necessary to meet the county and town's future water requirements. The following are included in this plan: a description of existing water sources, a description of the existing water uses, the description of existing water resource conditions, the assessment of project water demands, the description of water management actions, a statement of need, an analysis that identifies potential alternatives, and a map identifying implements is a part of this project. Staff began working on the water supply plan in 2009 by collecting the information on existing water sources. Caroline County was able to secure 2 separate grants from DEQ, the first in the amount of $8,000, the second in the amount of $4,000. W&W and Associates were then retained to assist with the development of the plan and worked with both the town and county staff to provide the plan that is before you this evening. This plan has been submitted to DEQ for a preliminary review, and we have addressed all of their concerns to date. The town of Bowling Green in the near future will be holding their own public hearing as well on the plan. And at this time, I'd like to introduce Herb White with W&W Associates as he briefly goes through this presentation.
This is a summary presentation?
Yes, sir. And Mr. Chairman, each of you also have a copy of this on your desk as well.
Good evening. We're going to
present a summary of the regional water supply plan for the county, for the Caroline County and town of Bowling Green. Some of this information Joey just went over, but I'll go through the overview again. This plan was required by 9 VAC 25780. It was the regulation was effective in November of 2005. The report is due in November of 2011, and this was presented as a regional plan for both the county as well as the town of Bowling Green. And the stated goal of the plan is to provide safe drinking water, encourage, promote, and protect water resources, develop incentives for alternative water resources. It's to aid in development of water supply projects for future water demands. I think Joey just went through the scope, so I'm not going to read this again, but it's basically a summary of the water uses, future water demands, copies of resolutions and program documents, as well as a record of this local public hearing. To summarize existing water sources within the county, we categorize that as community water systems as well as non-agricultural and agricultural self-supplied users. Community water systems we broke down into county systems, Milford Sanitary District, as well as the town of Bowling Green. And this presentation is going to attempt to concentrate more on the community side of the house. These are the permitted capacities for those 3 areas that are defined by the Virginia Department of Health, both on an average basis as well as a maximum daily withdrawal basis. This table shows existing water uses as it relates to permitted capacities. And you'll see that your average daily withdrawals are about 50% of what your permitted capacities are, but your peak daily withdrawals are pretty close to your permitted capacities. Non-agricultural uses, we've identified some of the primary users in that category, which would include the high school, as well as Fort A.P. Hill. If you'll notice here, A.P. Hill has a large permitted capacity, and their average daily usage is relatively low. This is a table that, a chart that kind of gives you a feel for community water systems. On the public side are 13% of the total water consumptive use within the county, and it just kind of gives you a feel for where all the water is going as it relates to the pie chart. Moving to water demand management, we are focusing on maintaining a balance between water supply and demand. This includes effective use, use reduction, loss and leak reduction. It's key that water management is especially necessary during periods of drought. As far as drought response and contingency planning, I know the county has adopted this plan through a drought management ordinance. Basically, it's tracking water production usage as it relates to your well yield capacities, and has established 5 stages of drought based on that consumptive use. The 5th stage, in other words, your wells are pretty much at capacity when you enter that stage. Moving to projected water demands, the planning period for this study was to the year 2050. Population growth was estimated to be 1.9 to 2.9%. This was based on Virginia Employment Commission numbers. We also estimated that 75% of the residential growth will be in designated growth areas, which is where the water consumptive use for the community public water systems actually occurs. And we established these growth factors for the purposes of the report to identify what we projected the water demands to be. This one's a little bit harder to read. I think the blue line is residential use, red is commercial, green is military. So this is by category of usage as far as the way it was projected in the future. I think this is non-agricultural self-supplied users. Again, breaking down the various categories and showing future consumptive uses. These are average daily demands. If you look at the blue line, that's community water systems. That's probably the one of most interest on this chart. You'll see in 2050, you're above 3 MGD, whereas now you're around 1.3 MGD. This broke it down, projected peak demands by community water systems, and it shows a total deficit for the planning period of 2050 of 4.5 MGD, with an existing permitted capacity of 1.7. So that shows there's a fair spread in the future between what your current ability to put water in the system is versus what we believe to be the future demands in 2050. Again, this is peak demand showing permitted capacities is the red line. And you can see that the existing well capacities are being exceeded on a peak basis by as early as 2015. This one's from Milford Sanitary District, same comparison. You'll see the same type of growth factors. This numerically summarizes what the statement of need is for 2050. Community water systems, again, it's going to go from 2010 demands of 1.2 to what we believe to be 3.1 in 2050. We then move to an alternative analysis. The purpose of this analysis is to look at options. It's not necessarily to pick the plan for the future. It's to discuss what options are out there so that we have a roadmap for the future. These would include water conservation, further groundwater development in Ladysmith as well as Carmel Church, which we're currently working on, as the board's aware. Other options would be interconnections with other localities, including Milford and the town of Bowling Green, AP Hill, Route 207, 301 extension, the possibility of purchasing waters from other counties and cities. For long-term, we're looking at a stream intake on the Rappahannock River. This site is approximately 5 miles northwest of Port Royal. The county has applied for a water withdrawal permit with a range of 7.7 to 11.5 MGD. And again, this is a future long-term plan. You can see this came from one of the previous studies and showed some of the alternative routes that were being looked at for this long-term plan. To summarize, as we said, 2.7 MGD is what we believe to be the peak daily deficit in the public water system for the county by the year 2050. It's going to take short-term as well as long-term strategies to meet this demand, both water conservation, development of groundwater and surface water sources, as well as interconnections to other localities. And then, again, the long-term plan would be to develop a surface water source on the Rappahannock. And that is a summary of the plan.
Mr. Chairman, we'll be glad to answer any questions that the board may have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Schiebel, and thank you very much, sir, for the summary overview. The board has actually this packet, and I'll just go over it real quickly. We're going to do the I'm going to see if there are any questions, then we're going to do the public hearing. But in the document, we had 6 minor changes. We changed the changes to indicate that the town has sufficient water supply from existing groundwater wells. The peak projections for towns were deleted. The minor map detail changes to reflect the town's current size area. We included a statement indicating that the county and the town will work together in the future service area expansion, as agreed upon by the county and the town. Statements reiterating the town has sufficient water supply from existing groundwater to show short and midterm growth. We'll explore alternatives for long-term growth. And the last one was the old mansion was changed to Bowling Green Farm. So those are 6 changes we have, just to make sure. At this time, board members have any questions of Mr. Schiebel or our consultants before we open the public hearing? No questions? We will declare the public hearing to be open for the regional water supply plan for the county and the town of Bowling Green. Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this matter? Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this matter? Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this matter? Hearing none, the public hearing is declared closed. Board members have any questions now for Mr. Schiebel? No questions? All right, Mr. Schiebel, I understand from Mr. Parton that there are, the plan that we're looking at now, the county will decide yes or no, but there were still some questions from the town's perspective. Is that your understanding too?
Yes, so the town still has to go through their public hearing as well, and we had a meeting with the town, and they've given us a list of things, and we've corrected the items that you've mentioned that appeared to satisfy them at that point, what was needed. But again, they still got to go through their public comment. Our public comment, now that it's over, we've got, we would have to respond to any public comment in writing. We'll bring forth at the next meeting under consent a resolution to adopt for the regional water supply plan. So there is no action tonight for you other than to hold the public hearing, which we have fulfilled.
Yeah, but the town won't meet between now and our next meeting, right?
That's correct. We have to vote on those independently. The town votes on their plan, we vote on our plan, and both of those would be voted on independently.
Okay, so do we have to wait?
No, sir.
Would you like to dispose of this now, or would you like to wait?
I don't mind disposing of it now. I say that we, I make a motion that we accept the plan as proposed by staff and our engineers.
Is there a second?
What if I guess I had a question.
Well, all right. First, there's a motion.
Right.
To clarify the action of allowing the motion, Mr. Schiebel has just said that he would put this on our consent agenda for our next meeting. Basically, since we've held a public hearing, it would be on consent agenda. My point is, what difference is it to have it on the consent agenda 2 weeks from now? We might as well dispose of it now. Then we will have been clear, plus we've addressed it, whatever the corrections the town has. We're just waiting for them to approve it.
My only question is that he said we had to wait for written comment, additional written comment.
We had no public comments tonight. We would have to respond to them if we had such.
Right.
We did not.
Okay.
So I had nothing to respond to.
Yeah.
And our plan is, I mean, the plan is a group plan, but our
Okay.
plan is pretty much set. If the town had changes, it would be specifically to their plan. And our plan, but their section of the plan.
Mr. Popowitz's motion is now on the floor. Is there a second to his motion? I don't see any problem with the second, but,
I'll second it, so we have
Guess
discussion.
okay. Motion's made by Mr. Popowitz, seconded by Mr. Akers. Apparently, there's discussion.
Right. My only concern, Mr. Chairman, is if they make changes, will that affect, in any way affect our plan? Could that in any way affect, since they're not meeting till after we meet again on 27th, if they make changes,
Then
Could
we'll
those
have to come
changes
back.
affect-
We'll have
right.
to come back and
But we
address
wanna-
those specific changes.
Only if it affected our
Right.
portion of the plan. If it actually affected what Caroline County was planning on doing. If we decided that we weren't going to Port Royal for the Rappahannock River in the future for long term, we took that completely out. That could be a major portion of the plan that would be gone. Or if we decided we were going to do something different in the interconnect or the ways that these were laid out, or our projections countywide changed, I think anything that they have will be minor modifications, and it'll affect the town's portion of the plan, not the county's plan.
Yeah. You're Mr. Schiebel, we're basically, it's an A and B type of arrangement. We're going to go for it, and if they make any changes, it'll be just in their portion of the plan. I imagine,
but couldn't it,
now I've got a lawyer, so I feel much better, but I imagine in this case, if there are any changes that affect the county's portion, then the county would have to come back and address those specifically before we had an official agreement between the two, right?
Um, I'm trying to think how that would be done if you've adopted your
Right.
portion already.
Otherwise,
Without
there's
looking
there's
at-
really no way to get out of this. There's a catch-22. If we adopt and they change, or we wait for them, they could say, well, we want to wait for the county. Mr. Master, can you help me?
Mr. Manstred actually was trying to see if they could get a joint meeting between the town and the board, and looking at the schedule, it was determined it was difficult, I guess, to get the two of them together at the same time between now and November 2nd, when we're trying to get the plans approved.
Well, I think that may be the ticket. We have one meeting in October. So
That's
we
correct.
probably do have the second, whatever the fourth Tuesday in October is. We have that available. We also wanted to talk to Mrs. Hatcher about some other things. Do you want to do a joint meeting then? But that's the absolute deadline to have it done by November, right?
I believe they were looking at a November 3rd deadline that they were going to meet, is that correct? They were actually going to be on, we were going to submit on our behalf of the county, have our plan in so we would meet the requirements to make sure we didn't lose any of our grant funding that we have submitted without the town, because they won't have theirs done until after the deadline. And we wanted to make sure that we had our section completed to make sure we didn't lose
I
any
think it's
grant
important
funding.
we go ahead then.
Yeah,
You just hit the magic word. We could lose grant funding if we don't have our side approved, right?
It's possible. We were supposed to, in the grant, it said that we had to have our documents completed and submitted. This is a group
Okay.
regional supply plan, so technically we're supposed to be together submitting them at the same time with those approvals. But what we're going to do is submit everything that we've got, and hopefully the town would follow up with their resolution that we would submit after the 2nd. But we would have the overall plan and our approval submitted, and then hopefully could submit that as an addendum shortly thereafter.
Okay, would the board like to, it's not going to be official until the town approves it too. We could approve our side now and then schedule that joint meeting with the town. So we would have an opportunity to meet with the town to address any concerns they have beforehand. My concern is that we don't lose any grant funding by not having our side done. Is that?
But from my understanding, what he said was that they won't approve their until after the deadline.
But if we're going to have a meeting, a joint meeting with them, then they have that opportunity to approve their side then. Is that, well,
no, they don't have their public hearing.
yeah, they still have to have their public hearing. Okay, Mr. Master.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, I've spoken with DEQ representatives, and they've mentioned that there will be no penalty for the town adopting on November 3rd.
Okay, you've spoken with DEQ and said there would be no penalty for the town adopting later?
A day later, I believe, yes. Not a
Okay.
problem.
And you're still going to schedule your public hearing November 3rd?
We hope to be able to have a public hearing in October. It depends on our work with the consultant on ironing out some questions that we have.
Mr. Chairman, the way I see this plan is that really, as far as Bowling Green and what we're going to be doing with them, that's at a later stage anyway. This plan addresses our short-term needs, our mid-term needs, and our long-term needs. Invariably, if we work with the town of Bowling Green at some future point, the realization of it is that at that time, we'll probably have issues that come up then. But as far as adopting a plan, this makes sense. There's probably not a whole lot of questions on the part of the town that would affect us at
The county side.
At county side anyway.
That was the impression I had.
Yeah. And so, really, I think we're making a mountain out of a molehill.
Thank you. Clear, Mr. Underwood?
I'm clear, but I just think it's procedural on that. I would want it to be them to approve their plan as well, since it's joint.
Well, that is the point.
That is, yeah.
The
So it's not
procedural
a
issue
mountain
is
out of
where
nowhere.
where I'm stuck, because
Right.
I'm going to give you my okay, and then the town comes back and says, well, yeah, I like this, but I don't like, item 3, 4, and 5, and then we're back and forth, but we've already approved our side. So how do we procedurally get out of that? Do we approve it as Mr. Popowitz says now, and then address whatever changes we have if the town has changes? Is that how you saw it, Mr. Shebel?
The intent